Hi, everybody. Checking in with you on a Monday, the 19th, I believe it is. My goodness, we're cruising right along here. Kind of a mixed bag of things to update you on today. One of them is a little frustrating. So today we had our COVID Oversight Committee, and Dr. Khaldun, the state's chief medical officer, was in along with the state epidemiologist. I've gotten really good at saying that word here during the COVID, epidemiologist. Anyway, unfortunately, we only had an hour and a half. The good doc had someplace to be, a phone call to take, whatever. So we only had an hour and a half. And when you get, a panel of however many of us are on there asking questions, then the answers aren't just yes and no. An hour and a half isn't much time. So hopefully we can have the good doc back. It was interesting. It was frustrating too. It's really hard to kind of pinpoint this, but a couple of things. One, all along we heard, well, it was a medical decision, and DHHS. And then when the director of DHHS was in, he's like, well, there are a lot of people are in on that. And today we had Dr. Khaldun, and she said, well, I give my medical opinion, but, the director of DHHS and the governor, I give them my opinion, and then they make the decisions. So it is amazing, and it doesn't surprise me, but, man, I'm telling you, they dance around an answer so good. They are smooth, and it's very frustrating. And, my thought was, they dance as well as Dancing with the Stars. I mean, they moved, and it's frustrating. So I got a chance to talk to the good doc, and I said, we talk about suicides and all of this because as a doctor, and I'm not a doctor, but I know my doctor works with me on my health, but then also realizes that Jack's kind of stubborn, so maybe I got to push a little bit here. You deal with each patient. You can't treat each patient exactly the same. So I brought up the fact about you set up these rules, but yet what about suicides? We hear that the suicides are up. Have you got the suicide numbers in the state? And I was stunned. The state epidemiologist and Dr. Khaldun said, well, we really don't have the numbers on suicides in the state of Michigan right now. That won't come till later in the year. And I'm thinking, what? We have a problem that everybody knows, that there are mental issues out there. There are all sorts of concerns. I have enough people in my district who deal with this all the time that are saying the suicide attempts at the very least are up, that the suicides are up, and they don't keep a running track of that. They don't know what their decisions are potentially doing to people mentally. They don't have those numbers. Nope, couldn't tell you. Wow. And then I said, okay. I said, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever we had Director Gordon in, I said, hey, weather's changing quick, and you finally got off the schneid and are allowing people to visit their loved ones outside, but the weather's deteriorating. Don't wait forever to decide how to do things inside. So I asked the good doctor, I said, can you tell me where we're at with nursing home visitations? Are you allowing them inside yet? And her response was, well, you have to play with this and you have to see how it take all the numbers into account. But we should have an answer on that this week. You should have an answer this week. The weather sucks. You want Granny, who shouldn't be outside in the cold, sitting outside in the cold? Or you got Granny used to seeing some people outside, and now you're going to stick her back in the facility for a couple of 3-4 weeks while you should have this together by then? Here's the thing that really pees me off. We sent a bill that's now headed to the Senate that is taking up the recommendations of the governor's own task force on nursing homes. She hasn't taken up the recommendations yet. It's her own task force. So we're going to have the good doctor back soon, hopefully, because questions, very frustrating today. And the good doctor, we need more answers. So hopefully they'll be more transparent. She says, "Oh yes, we'll give you the data you need." I asked her. I said, "Well, what about about 4 months ago, several representatives sent asking specific questions for data, and they sent 2 letters, and they still haven't gotten a response." "Oh, I didn't know anything about that." This plausible denial crap in this whole thing, really, as just a citizen who is now a legislator, it really drives me nuts. If this were the private sector, several of these people probably wouldn't still have their jobs. Just my thought. But I guess, of course, if the boss thinks they're doing okay, then we're good. Or if they're doing what the boss asks them to do. All right, I move on. This happened Friday. I didn't get it into my update, but because it happened late in the day, and I had already recorded. But this is huge. One of the problems is the mail-in ballots are very popular. The problem is, how do we safeguard our election? And the Court of Claims judge said, "Oh, no, you can take an extra 2 weeks to count those." How can a judge set law? Well, she can't. And on Friday, the appellate court agreed unanimously, 3-0, that basically said, no, the 8 o'clock deadline for ballots to be returned is valid, and that the current situation of who can bring ballots in, the law is constitutional and it applies. So that 14-day extension for counting, it still might take a day or two to get all the ballots counted. I ain't gonna lie. But at least we know that everything that's in by 8 p.m. on election day, as it has been forever, stands. Now, if we need to adjust some things down the road, and why our Secretary of State might not have asked us to pass these laws earlier in the term, maybe we need to say, hey, ballots need to go out a little bit sooner, and we need to have a definite cutoff that they have to be mailed by. Otherwise, they have to be hand delivered. Those kinds of things can happen. Why change it on the back end? We need to maybe adjust on the front end, because that election day is election day. Like I say, if I get to the polls late in person at 8:10, they ain't letting me in. So I salute and honor the appellate court saying, no. The rules are fine, and a judge can't just change the law, because a judge can't change law. So good news. This is another one that has bubbled up, and I'm not going to get too deep on this because I don't want to fall into a trap. But the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, for some reason, out of nowhere, announced that open carry of firearms into polling places would not be allowed on election day. And the head of the Michigan police chiefs, 385 departments, warned Monday that officers won't be able to enforce the Secretary of State's ban on openly carrying firearms at polling places on election day because it's not based in law. Now, our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has said she's reviewed it and said it is. And she said, well, if local police won't enforce it, Michigan State Police will. So here's my issue with this. I've been following elections now for 40 plus years. Has this ever been a problem? I don't believe it has. And so I worry, and I want to be very careful here, because I wonder if this wasn't done to just stir a pot. And it wasn't, I don't think it's been a problem. What about voter intimidation outside the polls? I've heard stories of people harassing voters and that sort of thing. That ain't legal, right? So be careful on this one before you just say, oh, that makes sense. It hasn't been a problem to the best that I can. And if it is, I asked the Secretary of State to please point it out to me over the last, 10 or 12 elections. I don't believe it has been. So I think this is more of a way to try and stir a pot. And I think that's unfortunate in this era of conflict that we have, and the volatile nature of our fighting who's right, who's wrong. I don't think that was a good one, Secretary of State Benson. And Michigan police chiefs are saying, this isn't. We can't enforce this. It's unconstitutional. Oh my goodness. There's another word from this administration, isn't it, that's been used before? This one really has nothing to do with COVID, but it does. Fewer cars have been on the road in Michigan during the coronavirus pandemic. At one point, I think it was down, traffic was down like 60% during the lockdown. But overall, it's down about 20% from years past. But yet our statewide fatalities has gone up a little bit. And they say if this continues through the end of the year, we'll probably have, I believe, a record year, or at least in recent years, the number of fatalities on the highways. And the reason their thought is, well, fewer cars, people go faster. And there's also tailgating issues and that sort of thing. So COVID it seems to have an issue on the roads as well. So Timothy Gates, an associate professor who studies highway design, said he's not surprised. Traffic volumes are down significantly everywhere, and we know that when traffic volumes go down in otherwise congested areas, there is less traffic, and so people go faster. And then, of course, it's just basic physics. Speeds go up, the likelihood of a fatal crash, if there is a crash, would occur. So slow down, don't tailgate, don't let road rage get you, don't let the COVID issues and the political debate get you all fired up and ticked off if somebody, I try to be reasonable. If somebody pulls out in front of me, I always figure, okay, you just assume they did it on purpose, right? You got in my way. I always try and think, okay, every once in a while I do a bonehead move on the highway too. So maybe that was just their bonehead move, Haven't you ever done that? You pull, oh, sorry, and it happens. So we just got to live and let live, even on the highway. So let's slow it down, even though there's fewer cars out there. Let's slow her down. People are dying on the highway too, and we don't want that. Everybody just wants to get home safe and sound. So kind of a mixed bag of stuff today. It'll be interesting to see what happens and what comes our way by Wednesday. But I'll be back then to tell you what I think and how I see it. As always, keep praying for this great state. Keep praying for your legislature and your administration, your governor. And I'll keep praying for the good people of Michigan. So let's go get them, all right? Good night.